YOLO Composing Gloves here, and today we're going to go over some of the answers to those questions I was asking you. So let's go ahead and hop on over here. So I asked you in these 3 tracks, and I picked some really pretty different sounding tracks because I wanted to give you, a good variety of things to work with. This isn't, one of the things when I was new is I just did not have that big aspect of music. I didn't have nearly the size of repertoire or music listening experience to draw on as I really needed. And I took a whole bunch of history of music classes that actually I really enjoyed them. They really opened my eyes up to a lot of things I had just totally ignored for a while. So I'm not saying that I have a huge repertoire now, but it's way better than it used to be. So I gave you a Kink Boiler Room set, which I really like Kink. He's amazing. And so I just asked you what the modes were for this. Now, you could argue for pretty much any mode on any song. So as long as you defended your point, if this were like a class and I was grading this, I'd give you credit if your point was a good point. So here, though, I really was hoping you would get the general vibe of what modes are in use mostly. So we say, okay, well, mode 2 and 3 are both pretty good here because Kink, he's always fading things in and out. And a lot of times the secret to fading the transitions he does is done via taking a sample, the sound itself, and morphing it into something else, allowing for a new swash of layers to come in. And so that's, I was hoping you'd either pick one of these 2 modes. If you said mode 1, like static sound, I'd be like, all right, I want to see a little bit of explanation because there's parts where things are static sounds. You could argue it, but mode 2 and 3 have much stronger arguments, in my opinion. I'd debate you on that. And then we have Bob Dylan. So yeah, pretty wild. Very young kid when he sang this. And now I want you to listen from a sound perspective. So there's all the songwriting and the singing and folk music and all that stuff. We're listening from a sound perspective. And now it's just a guitar and a voice. So it's mode 1. It's static. The guitar is not trying to do anything crazy or fancy. It's a guitar. It's laying down the harmony. It's what the guitar does for him. That's it. So mode 1, I thought that was pretty clear. And then the last one, of course, As Shadows Fall by Peter Gundry. This guy is a YouTube composer, and he's pretty good. I like him. So pretty cool song. And I wanted something a little cinematic for this one because I feel like orchestration is like the epitome of mode 3. And there's definitely, you can find it all the time with use of dynamic filtering in and out of 2 sounds coming together. We did a couple examples of that with the track Into the Deep, or you can listen to most techno songs will have some amount of layering, but I feel like orchestration is sort of like the high roller, this is the epitome of fancy mode 3 thinking, advanced mode 3 thinking. So I wanted to listen to one of those. And so I just, in my explanation here, I just said prominent because of the roles of the layers being used to highlight solos and create sound beds that guide us to the important sound. If a sound has a melody and the melody is being handed off from section to section, some sections are just creating a bed before something else comes in. So I thought this was just a good example of that. Now, of our exercises, part 2 is a project file, so we're not going to answer those. And then part 3, right, are questions. What are the 3 modes of thought? Well, if you did the first 2 exercises, these questions should not be terribly difficult. So I don't want to be like that textbook question that I'm like, what the heck? What am I need to know this for? I don't want to be one of those. But there are some things we need to just keep in mind. What are the 3 modes of thought? Well, the 3 modes of thought are layered sound, changing sound, and static sound. So we listed 1, 2, 3, and I've been calling them out throughout our videos. So shouldn't be a shocker there. List the 3 components of sound and what each of them are for. This should be easy. We have frequency, phase, and amplitude, right? Frequencies for how many hertz, how many cycles per second. Now, we're actually going to break this down a little bit further later, but frequencies, how many times per second. And then we have frequency, we have phase, starting point of our waveform, is how we're going to view it. And then we also have amplitude, how loud. And again, those last 2 have more technical definitions, but for us, how loud, for each individual frequency. I don't want you to think how loud of the sound in general. I want you to think of each individual frequency that composes our sound. And then that brings us to question 4. What is Fourier analysis used for? Well, that's used to break the sound down into a summation of sine and cosine waves. And we view the sine wave, since the cosine wave is just a phase shift of 90 degrees. Now this, again, the illustration is a little weird, but the blue is the cosine wave. So it's just a shift. So we just view everything as sort of sine waves. That's how we talk about it. In reality, though, it's actually cosine waves. And so that's what the Fourier analysis is used for, is to break down the sounds. That's why it's so cool. And then true, false, okay? It is correct to say that all sound is made of sine waves. Explain. And this is just sort of a check for understanding question. You can say, so this is false, by the way. You could say this and people would understand what you meant, but I just want to make sure you understand truly what you're saying. And that is, no, that sounds a complex wave. It's not a summation of these things until you do a Fourier analysis. And then you could say that. But until then, it's just a complex wave. And the reason is, as there's different types of analysis, like these questions have way more going on beneath them. So one does not imply the other. Just, yeah. So it's false. Now, if you said it, though, people would know what you meant. Just for yourself. No, you have to do an analysis because sometimes you get some weird things you have to change some things about how you do it. And we're not going to worry about these things. So you'll hear me say it sometimes the other way around. Like, oh yeah, it's just all sounds is a summation of sine waves. Like you'll hear me say that, but deep down inside, we really know, oh, well, that requires an analysis of the sound. When we listen to perceive the sound and when we're working with the sound, if we haven't done a Fourier analysis, then we can't really say that. It's like saying all cars are made of, now, yeah, this is okay, I guess. You could say all cars are made of metal and wheels. And you would be right. But if we're talking about a car, no one's going to think about it that way. So I guess I just want to point out this thinking that we do. We want to be careful about going back and forth between the way we think about it. It's sort of a subtle thing. It'll be easy. It'll make more sense as we actually talk about it. And then what is a sine wave? A sine wave is simply a pure frequency. That was what I was hoping you'd write. A single frequency. So it's just a frequency all on its lonesome. If you wrote something like, oh, it's a trig function, la 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 la, I think you're overthinking it a little bit for our questions at this point. Now it's right, but I'm really wanting you to see it as a single frequency. And then, yeah, and then I also like point out the answers over here, which we talked about last time. So there you go. That is it. And see if we have here. Let's see what I wrote for. While all sound can be broken down into sine and cosine waves, that does not imply that the current sound is currently sine and cosine waves. The sound is a complex wave before Fourier analysis. And another thing is, some plugins will do an analysis. Other plugins will process the waveform as a whole, or they'll split it up in ways that are different. So that's why I want to make this sort of divide between saying this sentence. And when I say it, what I mean to come across, you'll generally just pretty much understand. When we think about how plugins work, we cannot make this assumption. So that's just a big deal. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Do you think I should add questions here? Like, what would you additionally ask here? Now, keep in mind, we're going to talk about a lot of other stuff. Our next lesson is going to go into sub bass, and I'm still editing quite a bit of it because there's a lot of video examples I need to create and add. But yeah, subscribe and have a blessed day.